Hello and welcome to another writing vlog. I've got to get going on filling in this plot grid. If you're new here, hello and welcome. My name is Stephanie and I am writing 2 adult fantasy books right now. And I am in the middle of plotting my second book, which doesn't have a name or anything yet because I'm still figuring out what it really is. I am using a plot grid to create an outline for my story and to help organize my thoughts in terms of what is happening with the plot and the characters. And in the last vlog, I completed a plot for the entire story. I have 36 chapters, I think, and I have what's happening in each chapter in terms of my plot grid. But that is the only thing in my plot grid that I filled out. And I have many more columns that I still need to fill out for this outline. So in this vlog, I am going to be filling out the rest of the plot grid. I have to go through what's happening to the characters in every chapter and what's happening with the magic system and the history, what gets revealed. I have relationships in there I need to track, other, side characters, and I have countries and kingdoms and groups of people, all that I need to figure out what is happening when as I am going through each chapter. And I'm sorry, the sun, there must be clouds because the sun is like bright and then it's not. So I hope that's not too distracting for you. What I plan to do for this vlog is to fill in the rest of these columns, but it won't be 100% complete. The idea I'm going with right now is to fill in maybe a few sentences where appropriate. So if a character is in a chapter, fill in a few sentences for what is that character doing? What is that character thinking? And go through each chapter, fill in the appropriate things. Again, only 2 to 3 sentences. I'm not going to go into tons of detail yet because what I found in the last vlog was I kind of got stuck on the plot a little bit at the end because I was needing to be informed on what the characters were thinking or feeling and how they would decide things. And I still haven't really truly developed the characters yet. And that's going to be what I'm doing as I work through this plot grid. I don't want to go too far into detail right now because I'm pretty sure as I move through other characters and relationships and what's going on in the world, that things are going to change. So I'm just going to do kind of like a summary for every chapter for all these other things. And with these little summaries, I'm just going to basically create the rest of the story. I'm going to use what I have, use it to improve the plot that I already have, and then use it to build upon everything else. At the end of this vlog, I will technically have a completed plot grid because everything will be filled in, but it won't be complete for me because it still will lack a lot of the detail I need before I get to writing this book. I'm going to save the details for another vlog because that's going to be a whole nother step for me. But for right now, what's important is just fleshing out everything else in this story and kind of finalizing a broad story. I have a little bit of time to work on my book today, and that's what I'm going to do. I do have an activity I'm going to do first, and then I will settle in and write for a little bit, and then I have an appointment. I'm going to have to leave for that. And I'm not quite sure if I'll have time to work on my book after my appointment or not. So I'm not sure when I'm going to check in with you today or how much time I really have to work on my book because I do have to go to work tomorrow. So today is a very, Sundays are short days for me because I have to get ready for work. So my plan is not to go through one character at a time and then the relationships and the kingdoms and whatever. My plan is to go chapter by chapter and think about, okay, what is happening in this chapter, who's involved, what's involved, fill out the lines, and then move to the next chapter. I'm trying to start seeing these as a whole, as the story as a whole, as opposed to just little bits and pieces. And then in the next vlog, I'm going to break it down and look at the individual parts and pieces to improve on the details that I have. I will have at least a few hours to work on this plot grid, and I cannot wait to see how far I get and how complete my plot grid will look. just realized that my laundry is going and you can probably hear it, so I apologize. But anyway, I have finished for the night for filling in my plot grid, and I have mixed feelings about my progress. I did 8 chapters, and by 8 chapters, like the characters, relationships, what's going on politically or geographically, whatever. But I feel like 8 chapters, like I wish I could have gotten a lot more done. I just didn't have a lot of time. But then at the same time, when you think about it's 8 chapters of 36, that's actually pretty good. That's a good chunk of the book. And as I am moving forward, I found for the last few chapters, it's become a lot more difficult to fill it in. It takes a lot more time and thinking, because in the beginning of a book, a character's motivations and what they're doing is pretty simple, and it's that journey that's really hard to kind of figure out where certain things need to happen and what needs to happen. And I tend to change my mind a lot of times about the character's journey and when things happen. And so now I've kind of reached that point where things are a little bit more complicated and it's going to take me longer to figure out. Because I have work over the next few days, I'm just going to work on this when I have time. So what I'm going to do is check in with you when I have filled out half of my plot grid. So that would be chapter 18, which is 10 more chapters than what I have now. I think that's a good point to talk to you about my progress and to evaluate it for myself and see how things are going. I suspect the novel is going to be slower and slower because I have less of the plot worked out towards the end. I'm going to have to start facing these unknowns and these vague plot lines that I put in towards the end and kind of figure out what's really going on. And I still have put some vague things in the beginning because it's things that I'm like, okay, I need something here, not quite sure what it is yet, and I kind of want to see how things play out towards the end of the novel or in the middle and see how that could maybe inform my decisions for something I put in earlier. I don't want to force myself to come up with a bunch of stuff just to put something in there, because then I'll kind of mentally lock myself into that plot line that I put in there. And I'd rather at this point be a little more free and brainstorm a little more to see if I can come up with better things than something I think of. Anyways, I'm gonna call it a night. I will be working on this tomorrow in the next few days, and I'll check in with you when I reach the 50% mark on my plot grid. I'm finally halfway done with filling out my plot grid, and a few things have not gone according to plan, but that's okay. First, it's taking a lot longer to fill this out than I thought it would, and I think the reason for that is because I find myself having to go back and correct things. So for example, I'll be further along, like maybe chapter 13 or 14, and I'll be like, oh, my character should have this moment where this happens in the beginning to show whatever. It might be like they need to show some part of their character early on in the novel. And I neglected to show that, which is fine because I'm exploring the character development right now. But at the same time, it's kind of like sometimes I feel like I need a new scene because I can't really capture that in my existing scenes. And then I have to think, well, where does that scene go? And then because I already have chapter breaks, I'm looking at my chapters and thinking, okay, does it go in chapter 1 or chapter 2 in the beginning or the end? And then I'm not really sure exactly where to place it. So what I'm doing right now is I'm putting it in an existing chapter and just kind of assuming it will go in a certain place. And then when I go back and really refine my plot grid, I'm going to figure out the correct places for the chapters to end. Just because I feel like now as I'm going through it, I've done this a few times. I have a feeling I'll be doing it more, and I don't want to keep changing chapters around only to keep changing chapters around until I'm done. So I'd rather just go through it once and put things where I think they need to be, so that way when I go through and redo the chapters, I only have to do it once. The other thing I noticed is I am not really making room for things like side characters and geopolitical whatnots. I have been filling it out and my main character stuff is really filled out. Occasionally I'll fill out a side character thing. Occasionally I'll fill out a subplot. But right now the focus of the plot has been all about my main characters. And I've just noticed I have many, many, many blank spaces in my plot grid as I move through the chapters. Like my magic part of my plot grid is very bare, even though magic plays like a day-to-day part in their lives. I just haven't thought about where to place the magic. And I keep thinking, okay, yeah, there'll be places up ahead where I talk about it or whatever, and there just hasn't been. And the same goes for side characters and other things. It's been very much like, oh, I think I'll talk about them later, or I think they'll do XYZ later, and then it never happens. That's been a little bit disappointing for me because in my head, all of this stuff is there and it's occurring at the same time as the plot, but in my plot grid, it's not there. And it's kind of weird. I didn't notice that until fairly recently, so I didn't have a chance to really correct it. In the last few chapters that I did, I've been going through and thinking, okay, if I needed to mention magic or I needed to mention this side character or this country, would I do it in this chapter? So I'm starting to put I always start with maybe mention country here, maybe side character is doing an activity here. And so I'm filling it in with those with the intention of when I go back and redo my scenes, think about including these things as well. So I do have kind of mixed feelings about how my plot grid is going so far. I do think I'm making a lot of progress and filling it out well with the information in my head. I just think I'm missing a lot of things that I hadn't really mentally considered until now, and the plot grid is definitely helping me see that, which is why I love the plot grid so much. In terms of the length of the book, I've only added 1 chapter so far, so I'm now up to 37 chapters, which is still small. It's still kind of less than what I want, but considering how I'm going to probably add some chapters and scenes throughout the novel based on what I already know, I think the chapter count will probably even out to around 40 to 45, which is where I would like it to be. Today I'm going to get started on the second half of my plot grid, and hopefully I'm going to spend a lot of time on this weekend, and my goal is to finish the second half of the plot grid this weekend. I don't have a lot of time today, only a few hours, so I'm not going to get much done, but I'm really hoping that tomorrow and Sunday I can do a lot more. I will check in with you around 75% of my novel complete. So that would be, let's call it 25-ish, chapter 25, we'll call it. It might be like chapter 27, whatever chapter 75% is, I don't know off the top of my head. And I'll check in with you and let you know how things are going and how this rough plotting of my plot grid is going. Hopefully it moves a little more quickly and I fill in my plot grid a little more completely. Now I'm 75% of the way done with my plot grid. I managed to do that entire 25% last night. What ended up happening was I had plans for the entire evening and they got canceled. So I decided to take advantage of that and work really hard on my plot grid. And as a result, I finished it last night. So now I only have 25% left. So I'm at 75% and I'm really, really hoping I can finish making my plot grid, the rough outline of it all today. It is the afternoon now. Because I did so much last night, I chose to do different things this morning. I went and got the tires rotated on my car. Then I finished editing a YouTube video, and I finished up making comments on somebody's beta read. So I finished that up. That's done, and I got so much that I needed to get done over this weekend done this morning. And now I can focus on my plot grid. I only have 25% left, and that's not a lot, but this is probably the part that's the most maybe unclear. The last 25%, I ended up adding in a few extra scenes that I had thought of that definitely make the story and the plot a lot better. And over the course of me doing this, I've started to really hash out the details of the plot. Like, what are the decisions the characters are making and why are they making those decisions? Where I am in the story, there's a lot of, okay, this needs to happen, this needs to happen, this character needs to have this transition, whatever. But I haven't really been clear on how that's happening, and these details are slowly starting to filter in and the story's starting to come together. It's really fun to see, and when it happens, when I have these great ideas, I just get so excited. But I'm a little bit nervous about the end because I think aside from kind of how I always knew the story ended, all the details and stuff leading up to that are a little bit fuzzy. They're not as clear. And so I think it's going to take a little extra work to really dive in and fill out the rest of the plot grid because I still don't have too much to go from for that. But I have time today, and if I don't finish it today, I have some time tomorrow as well. So I'm just going to see how things go. I'm not going to stress myself out about it. I do still need to do a few other things this afternoon, but my main focus will be my plot grid, and I'm hoping I can do a really good job of filling it out today. I am done filling out my plot grid. It went so quickly today. I didn't need much time to do it at all. Like, I fit it all in and I wasn't stressing or anything. And I had such a great time filling it in as well. I think it's just, I'm so excited about the story and the possibilities and everything that it's exploring that filling it out was just fun for me. It didn't feel like work at all, and I wanted to do it. So there is good news and bad news with this. The good news is obviously that I finished. It is filled out. The bad news is it is not completely filled out in the slightest. I have many, many boxes where it's like characters talk about this or this fight happens. And the fight scenes are where I'm going to struggle the most because I have a few, I'll call them fight scenes, but it's more complicated than that. Well, it's very intense. There's a lot of action, a lot of characters, a lot of things going on. I don't have any of that planned out. Like, we'll just take a fight as an example. I have in there, these characters fight, and I know who's going to be in the fight, and I know the end result of the fight. Like, I know who wins, essentially, what happens after that, and what the characters accomplish after that and where they're going. And like, I know what happens before and after. I just don't really know what happens quite in the middle. Like, what are the logistics? Are they carrying weapons? Does someone get injured? The possibilities are endless. And I have none of that figured out. And that's where I'm going to have to really, really think hard. And that's going to take quite a bit of thought, probably days to figure out all of this stuff. And I didn't want to slow down my progress today just to figure that out. Like, that's something I can do tomorrow or in the next vlog, which I'll talk about in a minute. There's just more opportunity for me to spend time thinking about it to make sure I get it right instead of trying to rush it all and fit it in to my exercise today. Another positive note is that I am still coming up with really good ideas. It's ideas about character development and character relationships and even improvements to the plot. And I'm really satisfied with what I've come up with. And I just get really excited when I have good ideas. And having the number of good ideas I had today was really encouraging. I did end this with 38 chapters total. That's very close to 40, which is kind of around where I want this to be. And I do have a suspicion, as I mentioned earlier, that this will grow in chapter count simply because I'm not really rearranging things at this point. I'm just kind of squeezing it into what's already there. There will be more chapters. I know it because as I was going through the plot part this time and looking at the character development, I found a lot of chapters where I was like, I don't think the chapter should end here. I think it should end kind of like in the middle of this other chapter, or the scene should move around. So there's going to be a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of deciding where chapters begin and end and how much is in each chapter. And that's something I probably will explore in the next step, or maybe the step after. Honestly, I haven't thought about it. I just know it's not something I need to worry about right now. Now that I have a rough plot and my whole plot grid is filled out incompletely, honestly, I mean, there's stuff in every box where it needs to be, but the detail is not there. It's time for me to go in and do all of the details. I want to go through and not write out an entire conversation, but maybe bullet point or detail what's being talked about in every conversation. Make sure if there's a fight scene, I know what's happening during the fight scene. Another example is travel. There's travel in this book, like characters go from one city to another, and I'm documenting the journey, and it literally says in my spreadsheet, like, characters go to city. I need to detail what's going on, like how are they getting there, what's happening, what are they talking about, things like that. So I'm gonna have to go through and start doing that. I've worked out, I think, a fair amount of the character stuff in terms of what's happening. I think I just need to look at the arcs a little bit more with the characters and their relationships to check on the progression. I haven't been really tracking progression. I've just been putting things where I think they need to be, and I haven't really looked at the overall picture of how things are progressing. So that'll be something I work on next as well. Also, I am still struggling with filling in the blanks for all the details. I have many blank columns, not columns, but rows in a column. So I have like areas of like 7 to 10 cells in a row or in a column that are blank. And I definitely need to fix that, because if it's that sparse, maybe it doesn't need to be in the story at all, right? But I know it's important and I know it needs to be in the story, so I need to figure out a way to incorporate it, even if it's just like a mention or a little snippet of information. I think I've kind of missed in going through this the places where I need to drop information, and that'll be something I kind of pay attention to next time. Is all the information there that needs to be there? I think the answer right now is probably no, and I need to make that into a yes. I'm also going to work on the side characters more. What I realized has happened to the side characters is they were introduced in a part of the first, say, 25% of the book, and then they just disappeared. I think something similar to this happened in Project Lily, actually. I just get so focused, laser focused on the main characters and their arc, that I kind of forget about everybody else around. Since I did realize this when I was doing the last 25% of my book, I made a really conscious effort to think to myself, where can I reinsert the characters? Not like in the beginning and then mention them in the end, but where can I kind of start putting in their arc? But it was more of a, okay, I'm at 75% of the book, I haven't mentioned the characters. If they were still around, where would I mention them in the rest of this? And I'm going to go back when I redo this again. I'm going to go back and see where they are and how to kind of make their appearance more strong, just so that they aren't like this mysterious side character that disappears for the whole novel. Like, I don't want my reader to be like, so what happened to this person? That's not going to happen. And one more thing I'm going to work on next is the timing. I purposefully did not consider at all in this filling out of the plot grid, in this stage, the timing of everything. Like, is every chapter happening the day after, the same day, a week from now, a month from now? I purposefully did not do it because I just wanted to get the story out, and I didn't want to concern myself with timing. at this point. So what I'm going to do next, after I start going through and refining the details of my plot grid, is to assign timing to it. What month is it? And how, from scene to scene, how much time has passed. I want to do this now to see what my pacing is and to see where I change things, so I can also possibly incorporate that into my change in chapters and scenes whenever I do that. There's a lot that is going into this that I need to consider kind of like simultaneously. And it's going to be difficult, especially as I try and pull in and get all the details straight and get everything lined up. It's quite messy right now. And the goal at the end of all of this is to get a plot grid that is 100% detailed and ready so I can start writing my book. So I'm going to cover all of this stuff in the next vlog. It might be half of the stuff because it's a lot of stuff. I haven't quite decided how I'm going to do the next vlog. I'm just going to keep vlogging me making this plot grid until it's done. So I'll see you in the next vlog where I will be continuing to plot book 2.